All right, guys, we got another requested comparison. We got the Honor 400 versus the A56, and it's a pretty interesting comparison. These are kind of like upper mid-range phones, and the prices are kind of similar, right? And they both have a very premium design, so that's the thing that I've noticed about mid-range phones lately. They are really starting to look like kind of flagship phones. They don't look or feel cheap. Both of these phones have premium glass and metal designs. Now, where the Honor 400 kind of lacks here is that in this region, it would be IP65 or IP66, but it just depends on the region. But the A56 is IP67, so it just overall has a better water resistant rating. So I have more confidence like in this phone if you were taking it to the pool or beach or something like that. It accidentally falls or something. I just got more confidence in this phone. But design wise, you have a matte finish versus a glossy finish. But I mean, they both look great. They don't pick up fingerprints. They just feel solid in the hand. It looks like the Honor 400 is definitely just a little bit smaller. So I think it's a little bit more easier to manage. It's not as wide either. But yeah, so as far as hardware, I mean, two very nice looking phones, honestly. Now let's talk about the displays here. So on the A56 we have Samsung Super AMOLED panel. It is a bigger display at 6.7 inches, 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 1900 nits peak brightness. It is 1080p, and then we have 385 for the PPI with Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. And you can see the bezels are a lot thicker than on the Honor here. But the Honor has a pretty solid display. It's around a 6.5 inch display. It's an AMOLED display. And this one has 5000 nits peak brightness, and just going out today and taking photos, you definitely notice that it's just way easier to see this Honor phone outdoors. Now, this one has a resolution of 1264 by 2736, and it's 460 for the PPI. And both displays look great. You can see, again, the bezels are a little bit slimmer. They both have really good color profile. I think the A56 is a little bit more vivid in terms of its colors, but overall both displays look great. I honestly don't have an issue with the panels on here. One thing that you might not notice on the spec sheet with the Honor is that it's only HDR. It's not HDR10 plus like on the A56, so that is something to know. So there's a little bit of pros and cons here with the displays here. I still like the Galaxy's display, but I would say the biggest thing that the Honor 400 has, it's really that max brightness. Like, it is way easier to see this phone outdoors in direct sunlight. Now, for whatever reason, I still can't install 3D Mark or Geekbench on the Honor 400, so I've just pulled up the scores that were online. But these processors are pretty similar, guys, so they're going to give you similar performance for the most part here. So I'm still not sure why I tried to side load the applications on the Honor. It still didn't work, but we're getting similar performance in these benchmarks. We have the Exynos 1580, and then we also have 128 gigs, and I believe this one is 8 gigs of RAM. And then on the Honor we also have the Snapdragon 7 Gen 3, and then this 256 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM on the base model. And performance wise, they're gonna feel pretty similar. I do like One UI a lot more than the Magic OS. Like, I've been trying to get accustomed to it. It's kind of an interesting OS because it reminds me of iOS and MIUI, so they kind of like blended the two together, it feels like. But general performance is gonna feel pretty similar on these two devices. I don't feel like one is dramatically faster than the other. A56 right there, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get similar gaming performance as well. So if you're expecting to get some type of crazy performance, these are not typically the phones that you would buy for that. You want to go for like an older flagship, or honestly you can go with like a OnePlus 13R if you're somebody who's geared towards gaming. This is pretty good for just general use. The animations are pretty smooth. Everything is very consistent here. So I don't really have a major issue with performance here. You can see both these phones wobble like crazy. We will get the same performance here on PUBG here, and let's see what we get at HDR. Yeah, on HDR we actually get better settings on the Honor here, we can actually play at 90 frames on HDR. On the A56 we cannot, and it's a like very let's see, let's go back to 90. But like I said, guys, they're pretty similar in performance. I guess you could say that the Honor 400, you know, technically would have better GPU performance, but overall, you know, the Snapdragon processor might be a little bit better than this Exynos, but I don't have any overheating problem. And honestly, like I said, guys, they feel extremely similar in terms of performance. Let's check out the speakers at max volume. Yeah, the speakers are a lot better on the Honor 400. They're a lot more cleaner sounding and actually louder. Yeah, they just sound just a lot better. So it's like a night and day difference. The quality is just nowhere near as good on the A56. As far as the fingerprint scanners go, they are both optical fingerprint scanners. And another cool thing with the hardware is that the Honor 400 has a IR blaster, which a lot of people don't, you know, necessarily, you know, care about these days, but it's a very useful feature. So it's something that I really enjoy. So if you want to use your, you know, phone to control your TV or appliances and stuff like that, you can go ahead and do that on this device. It's a very cool feature to have. Now the camera setups go like this. You have a 200 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel ultra wide on the Honor. No telephoto lens, so you are, you know, capped at 30 times zoom. We have 4K on here as well. We have a 15 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K. And then on the A56, we do have a 15 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and then this one also lacks a you know, telephoto, so this one can only go up to 10 times. And then we also have a 5 megapixel macro. We also can shoot in 4K on the front and back. And then that selfie is 12 megapixels. And I'm going to show you guys these side-by-side stills. Let me know what you guys think. Now the two areas where these two phones shine is in the battery life department. You're getting really good battery life out of these phones, and the Honor 400, depending on the model, it's 5300 or it's 6000 milliamp because it does have the new battery tech. The A56 has a 5000 milliamp hour battery, 45 watt charging, and you have some crazy charging speeds on the Honor 400 at 66 watts or 80 watts, again depending on the region here. So this is going to charge much faster. I would say this one comes down to what you really think about the camera quality, what you think about Magic OS versus One UI, and honestly it really comes down to, you know, those two things. I think the phones themselves are pretty similar in terms of hardware and overall performance, so it just kind of comes down to that. So let me know what you guys think, which phone would you go with.